Hello and welcome to Heart to Fist. This is a pilot of sorts. We're not going to be covering anything related to the main topic of this podcast, and that's all right. That's okay for a little bit of a pilot. I'm going to do some introductions here. I'm going to be talking about some interesting stories, and we're going to get to know each other. Well, in the way that Dora gets to know you, I'm going to ask questions. Feel free to answer aloud. I just won't be able to hear you, nor do I really care what you have to say. But first off, let me tell you about what to expect here. We're going to be going over really horrible situations people have had to live through. We're going to be listening to horrible stories of people's relationships and very funny stories of those relationships. I'm going to be giving my opinion on it. Not that I'm a professional by any means, but I do have experience in consoling others. Am I good at it? Well, that's very subjective. But I'm here to have fun. And hey, a little bit of honesty goes a long way. If you'd like to reach out and you'd like to bring up something interesting you saw, for instance, there's a lot of people who air their dirty laundry out in public forums, and it's always interesting to look at from time to time. So if you see something, feel free to email me at hearttofist@yahoo.com. You can tell I'm really high up there. I got that Yahoo email. That's professional, that's class. And if you'd like a story you want us to cover, you want me to talk about, you want my opinion on for whatever reason, you want my advice, the advice of others, the advice of some stranger on the internet who's going to judge your opinion but tell you the truth, then email me there. Now let's get started. Now, who am I? Call me Bruce. If you want, call me whatever you'd like, but Bruce is the easy one to tell me. You know, I'll respond to Bruce. I'll respond to anything if you put it in a format in which I can understand what you're trying to get at. But Bruce is what I like. Now, I work in the healthcare industry. My career, maybe I'll get around to telling you about it. But all you need to know is I work around emergency patients and psych patients. Are you a psych patient? I don't think so. Not the ones I work with now. Some people that I meet on the roads, for instance, a certain man, and you know those like cube vehicles, those cuboidal smart cars, I think they call them. You know how many of those things have pulled out in front of me while I'm going 70 miles per hour? It's not shaped to go with the wind. It's a cube. Your cube cannot beat 70 miles per hour. You're not going 0 to 70. I don't know why I brought that up. But anyway, that's me. And there's one thing I really don't like. That's icebreakers. Icebreakers suck. It's almost as bad as overhearing a topic you really like and you want to talk about it to these strangers you've never talked to. It seems like they're a bit curious about something, but if you bring it up, they don't want to hear your opinion. They don't know you. They don't care. The conversation isn't really about remembering what that is. It's about enjoying each other's company. So I hate doing that, but sometimes you got to say something. I'm trying to remember what the last time I jumped in on a conversation was. I believe it was two dudes talking about keeping a goldfish in the dorm. And they're like, I don't think you need to get a filter for it. And the other one was like, yeah, you need to get a filter, I think. And they just kept going back and forth. I remember saying something really stupid. So I just say, I look over. It's the middle of my college course. I go, yeah, man, you'll need a filter. They can't breathe. They're not getting a good continuous amount of oxygen, and the water's going to get gross. And they just look at me just with dead eyes. I was talking to two corpses, and I felt like an asshole. But all I did was give practical advice. But they didn't want to hear it from me. So if you're ever in that situation and you're thinking, I want to talk to these people, if it's not something immediately urgent, if they're not like, how do I stop this bleeding? Will anybody help this man on the floor? Does anybody know CPR? Aside from that, if they're just talking about something that totally doesn't matter, let them figure it out. They don't want to talk to you. Nobody wants to talk to you anymore. It seems like I want to talk to you. But most people don't. That's the sad reality of it. Once you realize that, okay, it's not that bad. It's always been that way. Let's talk about icebreakers. I've already told you, people don't want to talk to each other. No, nobody really wants to talk with strangers unless they really, really have something they want to get across and want people to listen to them. But I'd say a majority of people want to be listened to, but realize if you engage in conversation, the other side is going to want to say something too. So it's not one-sided anymore. But with icebreakers, they have forced you not only to talk about yourself, a lot of us don't like to do, but now you're forced to listen to other people talk about themselves, and they probably don't want to talk about it unless they're a huge narcissist. Now, there's a big difference between comfortable and being overly comfortable with icebreakers. Now, icebreakers on themselves, if you're not familiar with the concept, which I am eternally grateful for the life you're living, but icebreakers are where some member of leadership, say a college professor, a teacher, a team building exercise master, will point at somebody in the group and tell them, hey, tell us something about you that you want everyone in this group to know, man. You know, it's like a youth group pastor. It's one of those kind of activities where your answer doesn't really matter, but it has to be verifiable information that maybe other people will relate to and put some information with your face so they won't immediately forget you the following day. So, if you're listening to this, tell me something interesting about yourself. And, oh, this is the worst one. We'll play a little game. We'll play a rhyming name game or some other adjective game, and I'll go first. I'm Bruce the Bastard. I listen to a lot of Cake, the band from the 90s. What about you? Really? Your mother gave you that name? Why? Ugh. What's your hobby? Ew. Anyway. Now, you're probably thinking, wow, these icebreakers don't sound too bad. Well, I have an icebreaker experience for you like no other. A fresh hell you haven't even begun to expect. Unless you've lived through it, then I'll see you in the same counseling center. Let's form a little support group. It was an icebreaker, and I was surprised we were having icebreakers in college because we're past the point where I have to like you people. I'm not in high school. I'm not going to see you ever again. This is a big-ass campus. But no, you got to be introduced to the people around you who don't like you anyway. Unless they're your friends, which most people I know that are really good friends of mine now, I didn't like them at first. So maybe it's just me, but it seems like a lot of people kind of go through that contention period. You know, there's just something about this person I don't like, but then you learn they're a cool human being, and you can overlook some of those surface level annoying attributes. But I'm a perfect being. You don't have to worry about that. I've never had anybody find anything annoying about my long monologues. I am a perfect divine creature. So, it's college. And it's not like your first day of college. This is pretty you're in it now. You know what you're here for. And the professor tells us we're doing icebreakers on the first day. And here's where it gets bad. Ladies and gentlemen and anything else. It doesn't really matter. Ever. But here's where it gets bad. You are to talk to your neighbor, and you're going to tell them a bunch of interesting things about yourself and your name, and they're going to tell a whole bunch of interesting information to you about themselves, and you have to find something in common between that. And then one of you will stand up and give like a 3-minute little speech about the other person and introduce them to the rest of this college class. And then the next person will introduce you to the entire college class. Yeah. Oh boy. It went pretty well considering the fact me and this dude only had one thing in common. We both had pets. And poor dude, we tried to make it good, but they sat there and timed it. It was timed. We had to talk about it, and if we didn't reach the time limit, we had to ask them questions in front of the entire college class. And I ask you, what did this psychological intimidation tactic have to do with my college education? Well, I'll tell you. Nothing. Like most things on a college campus, it's designed to waste your time and take your money. Like a lot of people are nowadays. So I guess it does have some relevance to this podcast. As relationships in college have something in common. You're going to get fucked over every once in a while. It's not going to be fun. And there's a lot of useless stuff to it. But if you play your cards right and you figure it out, man, it's worth the payoff. And there's nothing quite like landing a job you actually enjoy and making a decent paycheck. And if you look, most people who go to a college campus, they're usually not ready for college. They fail early on. It's a bit too hard for them. It's a lot of pressure. It's not easy, and it's expensive, and it takes a lot of time. And while not exactly parallel to relationships, of course, there are some things you can take from that. For instance, you may think you're ready for a relationship, and you might be, but that doesn't mean you're always going to be. A relationship is a series. A relationship is a series of compromises. You have to compromise. Do not give ultimatums. Do not listen to ultimatums. They have no place in a relationship. It is all about compromise. If you're unable to compromise over the small things, obviously, you're not going to be able to compromise over the big things. I knew a dude who got, I say I know a dude, he's a good friend of mine, who got broken up on Valentine's Day because of an argument that started 3 days prior over whether they should get KFC or Taco Bell. And you're thinking, why couldn't one of them get KFC, one of them get Taco Bell? Happy medium. Well, they wanted to go for the family size. This is when they had those taco boxes and a bucket of chicken. So it was either they went all in and they piled their money together and they got a bucket of chicken or a box of tacos. It ultimately meant nothing. But these people, they weren't meant to be together. Of course, they couldn't work through it. This small thing, they'd been together for 2 years at that point. And of course, there had to be other factors. I'm not saying Taco Bell and KFC is solely responsible for these two people finding out that they just don't like each other. But the fallout of this relationship is something interesting. So because of this small argument, it's very clear from the outside this was small, but I imagine if you were in that heated debate, it would seem less important. It wasn't exactly about the food. It was, oh, we just don't really like each other that much. You get on my nerves, and now I'm able to kind of, push through that and show it through my KFC and Taco Bell opinions. But what happened afterwards is these two people who at one point really liked each other enough to be together for over a year to suddenly hate each other. And they don't blame the Taco Bell or the KFC. They blame the other person. And it's really, and this is controversial here, it's their own fault. It's each one of them. You can't say there's ultimately one person in a relationship most of the time. I'm not going to say all the time because there are crazy people out there. And I use that word very sparingly, but there are crazy people out there. We've met them. I'm one. I'm a crazy person. You probably are. But there are crazy people out there. But the majority of the time, it is not because one person was just ultimately the supervillain. It's not black and white. 98% of the time. But listening to my friend, it'd be that way because this woman went from the woman of his dreams. He'd tell me all these wonderful things and all these great things they were planning and what they were going to do in the future, how many kids they were going to have, where they're going to move to. I hate this woman. I want to hit this woman with my car. And that is a concerning statement. But this woman's also a friend of mine, and I heard the same thing come out of her mouth. The only difference is she didn't have an automobile and he did. So it was a bit different. There was implied grand theft auto from her part. But these threats of violence, they fall short. Why be angry? You are going to die. We are all going to die. Why are you angry? You like this person. You no longer like this person. Boom. They did what they did to you. You argued. It's over. That is it. That's all you need to know. That's all that is required. So, what does this long-winded ramble have to do? Is that maybe, if there aren't children involved, ultimately, relationships, once they're over, can be buried. They don't matter to you. Unless you got something you're going to carry to your grave from it, or you have to take care of something for it, or take pills from it, ultimately it doesn't control your life anymore. And it's really kind of weak of yourself to put all that anger in somebody who's probably not even thinking about you half the time. At least we'd like to think so, but who knows? Human beings are complicated, and there is nobody out there who knows every little tip and trick, and everybody makes mistakes, and you already know this. It's common sense. I'm not saying anything new. I hate icebreakers. Welcome to the first episode of Heart vs. Fist, aka man rambles in first episode, but later becomes more focused and rambles a little bit less. If you like this, thanks. That's good. All right. You have a good night. It's like 2 a.m. I'm gonna finish up on some work, and I hope you do too. Stay productive, stay healthy, have a good rest of your day, morning, night, whatever time it is. You have a good one.